Have you ever looked at someone's financial decision and just thought to yourself, are you crazy? Well, today we're going to dive into the first chapter of Morgan Housel's fantastic book, The Psychology of Money, to break down this really powerful idea that when it comes to money, no one is crazy. This quote right here, it's the key that unlocks this whole concept. And I know, it sounds like a total contradiction, right? People do things that seem objectively nuts, like, spending their emergency fund on lottery tickets or just refusing to invest in the stock market. But Housel's whole point is that behind every single one of those decisions, there's a logic that makes perfect sense to the person making it. So where does that personal logic even come from? Well, it's forged in the fire of our own unique experiences. Our financial worldview, it's not built from textbooks or spreadsheets. Nope. It's built on what we've actually seen and lived through with our own two eyes. I mean, just look at these two completely different worlds. Someone who grew up in poverty is going to think about risk in a way that the child of a wealthy banker just can't even begin to comprehend. And someone who watched inflation just eat up their family's savings, they have this deep-seated fear that a person who only ever saw stable prices will never, ever truly feel. Their version of what's rational is just fundamentally different. And get this, here's a wild statistic to back that up. Our own personal experiences with money, they make up maybe, 0.000000001% of what's happened in the world ever. But they account for about 80% of how we think the world works. That is a massive disconnect, and it explains why two equally smart people can look at the exact same data and come to wildly different conclusions about investing, about saving, and about risk. And this quote, this really gets to the heart of the gap between knowing something in your head and feeling it in your gut. Sure, JFK could read all the books in the world about the Great Depression, but he never felt that fear and uncertainty in his bones. He didn't carry those emotional scars. And that's exactly why someone who lived through it might see owning stocks as reckless, while someone like JFK wouldn't even blink. And look, this isn't just some fluffy theory. Researchers have actually found a really clear pattern. We become emotionally anchored to the financial world we grew up in. So what these researchers basically found is that your willingness to take financial risks often has way less to do with your intelligence or your education and a whole lot more to do with the dumb luck of when and where you were born. The stock market's performance, the inflation rates you saw in your teens and 20s, that stuff leaves a permanent mark on how you make financial decisions for the rest of your life. Just take two people. Let's say you were born in 1970. You saw the stock market explode by nearly 10 times during your formative years. The lesson you learned: stocks are wealth-generating machines. But what if you were born just 20 years earlier, in 1950? The market went absolutely nowhere. The lesson you learned: stocks are a total waste of time. Same market, two completely different realities. Okay, so let's use this idea to tackle a real-world puzzle that, on the surface, seems completely irrational: the lottery ticket. Why on earth do people who are struggling financially spend so much money on something with such astronomical odds against them? First, let's just look at the number, $412. That's the average amount low-income households in the U.S. spend on lottery tickets every single year. Now remember, something like 40% of Americans can't come up with $400 for an emergency. So the very people buying these tickets are often the same people who don't have a safety net. And this is the question that makes us judge, right? It just seems crazy. If you're looking at it from the outside on a spreadsheet, it's a terrible financial decision. But we're missing the story. We're missing the unique reality of the person who's buying that ticket. See, the key thing to understand is they aren't buying a financial product. They're buying hope. For someone who's living paycheck to paycheck, the dream of a nice vacation, or a safe home, or sending their kids to college, it all just feels impossibly out of reach. That lottery ticket, for a dollar or two, it provides a tangible dream of that life. It's an emotional purchase, not a financial one. But wait, there's another massive piece to this puzzle. It's not just that our individual experiences are different. It's that, collectively, as a human species, we have almost no experience with the modern financial system. We are all complete and total beginners. Seriously, think about it. We've had about 10,000 years to figure out our relationship with dogs, but we've only had a few decades to figure out things like retirement savings and student loans and credit cards. We're running on this ancient survival-based software in a brand new digital world. I mean, this timeline really drives it home. Just look at how new all of this stuff is. The 401k, the absolute bedrock of American retirement, it was only created in 1978. The Roth IRA? That didn't even exist until 1998. If it were a person, it would just be getting started in its career. So it should be absolutely no surprise that we're bad at this. This quote from investor Michael Batnick just nails it perfectly. Since all these concepts are so new, there aren't generations of wisdom for us to draw from. We're the first, or maybe the second generation, to really have to grapple with these things on a huge scale. We are all learning by doing, and that means we are all going to make mistakes. So the next time you see someone making what looks like a bad decision with their student loans or their retirement savings, it helps to remember we're all improvising here. We're all just winging it in a system that was pretty much invented yesterday. Okay, so let's bring all of these threads together. After looking at our unique personal histories and the fact that this entire financial system is brand new, what's the single most important thing to take away from all this? It all really boils down to this. What looks like a crazy decision from the outside is often just a logical response to a person's unique life story. And that personal history is way more powerful than any spreadsheet, especially in a financial world that's so new we're all still learning the rules. The real takeaway here isn't some financial tip. It's a call for empathy, both for other people and maybe most importantly, for ourselves. And that leaves us with one last question to think about. Don't just think about other people, turn that lens on yourself. What market booms or busts, what family conversations about money, what personal struggles or windfalls have shaped the way you see the world? Because understanding your own story is the first, most important step to mastering your financial life.